Have you ever thought about what it would be like to have a doctor's visit where you need to explain your problems that you're having all in English? In this English conversation lesson, I'm going to be sharing some stories that Curtis and I have had, experiences where we have needed to go to the doctor, and explaining different feelings that we had within our body in a lot of detail. There's going to be a lot of great vocabulary here that you can use for several different situations to help you the next time that you need to go to the doctor. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to explain how you can get access to the text for this conversation and also 49 other conversations that we have available on our website.
Okay, for today's conversation, we're going to talk about things related to going to the doctor. So getting sick or having an injury, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have noticed that a lot of our students don't really know how to explain how they're feeling, maybe pain or different symptoms that they're having in their body. So we thought that we could share some of our experiences that we've had, unfortunately, where we've either been sick or hurt ourselves and what it was like, what was happening to us. So Curtis, for you, I think we're going to start backwards and maybe moving our way forward in time.
Okay.
And one of the first stories that you were going to talk about was related to something that happened to you in high school, right?
Yeah, it was back in high school. Actually, I was in a marching band and I played the bass drum, and we actually competed against other marching bands. So we went on tour through the United States and we won this competition one night. And then after the competition, we went back to the high school gymnasium that we were staying in. And around these high schools are stairways or staircases.
Like the bleachers, right?
Yeah, kind of like that, but more of the concrete, not really the bleachers, but the concrete stairs that lead to the gymnasium.
Oh, okay.
So we're hanging out and sitting on these steps, and above us are these railings that are thick steel or metal, almost like metal bars, I guess. And my friend, who was also a bass drummer with me, we played bass drum, and he was up on top where this hand railing was. And he was moving it back and forth because it was loose.
Like kind of shaking it or playing around a little bit?
Yeah. So he was goofing around, playing around with this thing, this handrail, and it came loose and it fell.
Right on you.
On top of me. The other members of the marching band ran out of the way, but I was a little bit too late.
You didn't realize what was happening, probably.
Yeah, it happened in an instant. I looked up and it was already falling on me. It hit me on the side of the head and my ear started ringing. It was so painful. It was so painful. I was crying like crazy. So they were like, oh, call 911, call 911. Curtis is hurt. And then my friend felt so bad. He was crying because it was his fault.
Right.
And throughout the whole month of this tour, he kept apologizing to me. Are you okay, Curtis? He felt really bad. So they called 911 and an ambulance showed up. And they asked me if I wanted to go to the hospital. They needed my permission. And I said, no, I think I'm going to be okay. So they checked me over. The paramedics checked me over.
What happened though? Did you have any physical symptoms? Did your head hurt after 2 minutes? What happened?
It hurt all day. And then I had this bump on the back of my neck or side of my head where it hit me. It hit close to my ear, and it was swollen, and it didn't bleed or crack open or anything like that. But I felt, kind of dizzy at first, really disoriented, lightheaded, and they were thinking that I might have had a concussion.
Right.
But
did somebody have to monitor you at night?
Yeah, we had what was called chaperones. So their parents that came with the group of us they volunteered and they came with us on the tour. So they had one of the kids' moms look after me and make sure that I was okay and that I wasn't feeling nauseous, because sometimes that's a symptom of a concussion.
You throw up if you have a concussion.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so I'm going to talk about an injury that I had one time. And this was a really stupid kitchen accident. And
oh, God.
I don't do stupid things like this very often, but when I do, I really, really mess it up. And so what happened was I had this thing, it was called a hand blender.
Yeah.
And it's like not a hand mixer. It's this type of small kitchen appliance that you can put different attachments onto the end of it. But the one that I was working with in particular was a blade that's really sharp and it spins very, very quickly. And I was making whipped cream with it. So anyway,
I remember this.
I decided to clean out the whipping cream that was in around the blade, because it's kind of like this cup where, I don't know, some of the whipped cream was still inside. And while I was doing that, I accidentally bumped the button on the side of the machine and it was still plugged in. So it basically cut directly into the tip of my finger on both sides, all the way down to the bone. And I realized immediately what I had done. And I said to Curtis really quickly, who was around, I said, "Oh my God, I just cut myself really bad. Hand me a piece of toilet or paper towel."
Paper towel.
I was going to say toilet paper, but no, paper towel.
To put pressure on the wound.
So he handed me this chunk of paper towel, not really realizing what was going on. And I wrapped it up around my finger and I squeezed it as tight as I possibly could. And we went to a walk-in clinic because I knew I needed stitches.
Right.
Like, this wound was not going to close by itself. And if I didn't get stitches, I was going to be left with a really, really ugly scar and a mangled finger. So
You almost cut it off.
Well, if my bone wasn't there, I would have cut it off for sure. But luckily it stopped at the bone. So I went to the walk-in clinic and I was the last patient of the night that they accepted. And I was really grateful because otherwise I would have had to go to the emergency room down at the hospital and probably had to wait maybe, I don't know, we would have had to wait 6 hours or 8 hours or something. Like, it's a really, really long wait when you go to the emergency room. So I went into the doctor, and luckily, because I had put pressure on it for such a long time, the bleeding had kind of slowed down, and I was able to put it in this disinfecting solution for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And then he came back, dried it off. He had crazy glue. And
wow.
He realized that he didn't need to do stitches because it was such a clean cut. He was able to put a couple of drops of crazy glue in, hold the skin together for a couple of seconds, and it bonded together. Like, it glued it together, basically. And he did that on both sides, put a Band-Aid on my finger, and he said, "That's it, you're good to go." And I asked him if there was any aftercare that I needed to do, like disinfecting it or whatever. And he said, "No, just change the Band-Aid. Don't do anything rough with picking up heavy objects or doing anything stupid that would probably reopen the wound.
Keep it clean, right?
Just change the Band-Aid. He did. It was really, really simple, actually. And it healed perfectly. You can hardly see the scar on my finger now. So I was very, very lucky.
Okay, my turn to tell a story now. Remember that time, Amy, that you drugged me up snowboarding and I sprained my ankle?
Yeah, I remember that. That was a pretty bad sprain, actually.
Oh, it hurt so much. I must have fell on it in a really strange kind of way. So I had to go to the doctor, of course. And it was swollen. And he said, "Yep, definitely your ankle is sprained. So this is what you have to do to look after it and make sure it gets better." It was hard for me to walk. So he said, put ice on it. He gave me a special type of bandage to wrap my foot up.
Like, did he wrap it in the clinic?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
so he used that sticky medical tape Oh, okay.
Which is kind of like a cast, a soft cast. I've heard people call it as well. So I had to get crutches as well because I couldn't walk. So they can rent crutches out to you for, I don't know, super, super cheap. So I had to hobble around on crutches for quite a while there for, I don't know how long it was.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of weeks, a month. I don't know.
I don't think it was a month. That must have been a really bad sprain. Okay. But normally, like, you might have to use crutches for 5, maybe 10 days at the most if it's a really, really bad sprain. But did he tell you to elevate your foot and lay down, or just to put some ice on it?
Both. I had to keep it elevated to reduce the swelling, and with the ice as well.
And to keep your weight off the foot.
Yeah, don't walk around, don't, stand or anything like that.
Okay.
So every time that I had to move or walk or go somewhere, I had to keep off of my foot and keep it above ground.
Yeah, above, when you elevate it, it's usually you try to keep it above your heart. So if you're laying on the bed, for example, you might put a couple pillows under your heel to lift it up. And if you're on the couch, the same sort of thing. But yeah, the idea is just to keep your foot up so that it can reduce the swelling and help out. Sometimes the doctor also will prescribe you like an anti-inflammatory or something to help reduce the swelling and to help it heal faster.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. And yeah, I got over it and lived to tell the tale.
And you've never sprained your ankle since. Lucky guy.
Yeah.
Me, on the other hand. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the last story that I'm going to share is about a time where I was really, really sick and I had a high fever.
Oh, yeah.
I think this was the worst situation ever, honestly. Like, when you're sick, the only place that you want to be is home and alone.
In bed.
You don't want anybody to see you. You don't want to have to be polite or nice to anyone or talk to anyone. You just want to hide and be sick and be alone and be miserable, And what happened was Curtis's cousin, Dean, and his wife, Devon, they offered to let us stay at our house when we were in the process of trying to get our temporary residency application for moving to Mexico. And it ended up being a pretty complicated process for us. So we were there for about 10 days. The very first day that we arrived, we had a big plan. We knew exactly what we needed to do. We had to run around to get all this paperwork and stuff. And we were catching the SkyTrain, which is like a metro that is in Vancouver, catching the buses, a lot of public transportation. Beyond that, it was really cold. Well, for us, it was cold because we're used to the temperatures here in Puerto Vallarta, where it's like 27 degrees in the winter. And in Vancouver, it was 2 to 3 degrees and raining.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I caught like this terrible cold, like a really, really, really bad cold.
Your nose was running. You were hacking up a lung.
Hacking up a lung. No, I had a bad cough that came after. But it started out, I think, on Thursday. I had a little bit of a cough and I had a sore throat that was starting. The typical symptoms, it starts in your throat. It's a little bit sore when you're trying to swallow. And, you have a little bit of a cough, like a tickle in your lungs or a tickle in your throat, you can say. And, I started to feel one side of my nose was starting to plug up a little bit.
Went into your sinuses?
Yeah, it's like your nose is running or your nose is plugged on one side or both sides and you can't breathe. But it was just starting to be like that, though, like the cold was developing. And I remember we were sitting in the living room and Curtis and his uncle were watching the hockey game. And I'm looking around and I started to feel really cold. But everyone else seemed quite comfortable. They were in their T-shirts. Everything was fine. And I'm thinking, oh, Amy, you're so sick. Just go to bed. This is your body telling you that you need to go to bed. And this was the start of this fever. Holy man. I crawled into bed. I covered myself with this big comforter that we had, which is like a heavy blanket that you use during the winter time in places like Canada. And I mean, it was already like a heavy blanket that was on the bed. And I was wrapped up in this blanket trying to get warm. And it was like, I got colder and colder and colder. And this is the part of the fever that we call the shivers or the chills, right?
Yeah.
What is it?
No, both.
But what about when you're hot? What do we call that again?
Oh, you have a fever?
The chills and
you're burning
the sweats
up.
and the chills?
The sweats and the chills, or you're burning up.
You're burning up, exactly. So this is the chills part of the fever where I was really, really cold. So I remember it was like this drama that was going on in my head. I'm in bed, I'm wrapped up, trying to get warm, can't get warm, totally freezing. And suddenly I realized that I have to get up to go to the bathroom. And I'm thinking, no, I don't want to get up. I'm going to be out of my cocoon of heat. I'm probably going to die. And I'm laying in bed and I'm strategizing how I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to die when I go to the bathroom. I'm going to freeze and it's going to be terrible, but I've got to go. So I see when I look up in the closet, I could see that there was this big fluffy duvet, like a feather duvet, which surely is going to be a lot warmer. And when I looked to the other side of the room, there was this toque that was on the dresser. And I thought, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go to the bathroom. I'm going to come back. I'm going to grab the duvet out of the closet and pull it down. I'm going to put that toque on my head and I'm going to crawl under these blankets and hopefully warm up. And this is when you came in the room, maybe like an hour later.
I love this whole action plan that you had.
It was strategizing. I seriously thought I was going to die.
And then I walked into the room when I was ready to go to bed, and you were all like bundled up in this thick duvet with the toque.
Under a heap of blankets.
Oh, and I was like, what is going on here?
You had no idea I was going through this.
I had absolutely no clue.
Well, I was a guest in the person's house and I really didn't want to be a bother. I didn't want to be annoying, So I was just suffering by myself in this situation. But my hands were freezing. My hands and feet, they were just cold like ice cubes. And, there was nothing I could do. But then the other side of the fever came. My temperature came back to normal. And then it kept going up and up and up. And soon I was just, oh man.
Then you were sweating.
I wanted to open the window in the middle of winter and lay without the blanket on. I was like my own personal furnace that was happening. I remember getting up in the morning and the blanket was just creased from end to end from everywhere I was laying because I was probably generating so much heat. But yeah, this is, probably one of the worst colds that I've ever had. It ended up turning into a really, really intense, bad cough where I was just coughing and hacking and, almost coughing until you can't breathe anymore.
But you didn't have to go to the doctor, did you?
I probably would have went to the doctor if we were in Mexico. But because we're in Canada, it was like, oh, I don't want to use my private health insurance. And, it's okay. It's just a cold. So luckily I started to get better within the next few days and everything was fine. But yeah, those were some bad days. So anyway, I think that gives you guys a good idea of how you can talk about different sicknesses. I think that the only one that we didn't talk about was related to stomach problems where maybe you're vomiting or you have diarrhea or something like that. And those types of topics are a little bit uncomfortable for most people to talk about. So we're going to leave out any personal stories there. But we'll see you guys next time in one of our other conversations.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. This shows me that you really enjoyed this conversation lesson. Leave us a comment below letting us know what your favorite part was, or maybe you can tell us of a time where you were sick and had to go to the doctor for some extra practice. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel while you're doing that. To get access to the full text for this conversation, you just need to do one simple thing. Head over to our website at realenglishconversations.com and create your free member account. It's totally free, and you're going to get access to our most recent podcast lesson. Right now, it's this one about going to the doctor. And if it's after that, maybe you come in May or June or 2 years from now, don't worry about it. When you register as a free member, you're still going to get access to our most recent conversation lesson that's just as cool and interesting as this one. I'll see you guys at the website.